Thomas Massie just tried to corner FBI Director Kash Patel with a barrage of Epstein conspiracy hints. But what this hearing really exposed is how far Republicans will stretch to muddy the waters instead of demanding real accountability. When the questions get louder, the deflections get louder too. So let's break down what actually happened and why it matters.
Consent request.
Gentleman's recognized.
So I've got 4 documents I'd like to introduce into the record. The first one is Jeffrey Epstein's 6 story played out for years in plain sight. And Acosta is quoted in here saying, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." The second document is entitled, "What Epstein's Bodyguard Warned About His CIA Connections." The third document is from Fox Digital. It's titled, "Epstein's Private Calendar Reveals Planned Meetings with Obama Admin Official CIA Chief." And the last document is Wall Street Journal article that highlights Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. He was the former Prime Minister of Israel and head of military intelligence for Israel. It may have held that title when he met Epstein, and then, yes.
Without objection, the gentleman will hold for a second. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one UC request. This is Judge Engelmeyer's decision from August in U.S. versus Epstein, stating the government's 100,000 pages of Epstein files dwarfs the 70-odd pages of Epstein grand jury materials.
Without objection, the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, you've seen most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself? You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to 2007 and that the non-prosecution agreement hamstrung future investigations. Those constraints only apply to Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD 302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors, such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of 2 different United States attorneys' offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials in lifetime.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said
I named one today.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice and FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the case as well.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of the discharge petition to release these files?
I don't know what day that was, so no.
Well, they were released that day, and there were victims' names who weren't redacted because they were in such a rush, and the victims are not happy about that. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein, and if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you?
Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file, and I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us.
Would you be willing to look at the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein?
If there is such a file, and if it has not already been turned over to the FBI will look at any new investigative leads.
Have you made any progress on the pipe bomb investigation January 6th, and have you made any progress on the motive of the Las Vegas shooter?
As to the first, it's an ongoing investigation, and we have made progress. As to the second, sir, I'll have to get back to you.
All right, thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous.
What we just witnessed in that exchange between Thomas Massie and FBI Director Kash Patel wasn't some bold pursuit of truth. It was yet another display of how Republicans love to weaponize high-profile scandals, not to protect victims, not to expose wrongdoing, but to create political theater that distracts from their own failures. Massie wasn't asking questions to get answers. He was staging a performance to feed a narrative that somehow the real problem isn't Epstein's decades-long abuse network, but the FBI, the DOJ, and anyone associated with a Democratic administration. But once you peel back the theatrics, something very important becomes clear. Republicans keep reaching for shadows instead of solutions. They want people to believe that there's a grand cover-up involving Democrats, intelligence agencies, and anyone inconvenient to their story. But the moment Patel reminds him that multiple administrations, including Republican ones, reviewed the same files and reached the same conclusions, the argument falls apart. Massie doesn't engage with that fact because it doesn't serve the narrative he came to build. And that's the problem. Conservatives in Congress keep pretending they're fighting for justice for victims. But where is that urgency when it comes to trafficking legislation, when it comes to funding victim protections, when it comes to strengthening laws to prevent the next Epstein? Democrats consistently show up to do that work. Republicans consistently show up with headlines and finger-pointing. There's a difference between accountability and political opportunism, and what we saw here was the latter, plain and simple. What's even more telling is how quickly the conversation veered into conspiracy territory about intelligence agencies and secret files. That's not oversight. That's distraction. It's a tactic used to shift the public's focus away from real legislative priorities and toward fear, suspicion, and manufactured scandal. And that hurts victims the most, because the truth gets buried under noise. At the end of the day, hearings like this are a reminder of why we need leaders who actually care about reform, transparency, and justice, not those who just want to score points. Democrats are the ones pushing for full disclosure, victim protection, and real accountability. Republicans are the ones trying to turn this into political currency, even if it means exploiting the trauma of survivors. So it's on us, on every viewer, every voter, to recognize the difference. If we truly want change, we have to support the voices that are fighting for it, not the ones performing outrage for the cameras. That's why the Blue Report exists, to cut through the noise, unpack the facts, and shine a light on the real motives behind the rhetoric. And if you want more coverage like this, coverage that centers truth, compassion, and accountability, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're tapping in, and make sure your voice is part of the movement. The more we know, the harder it becomes for bad faith actors to manipulate the narrative. Let's keep exposing the games, uplifting the truth, and pushing for the justice victims deserve.